Or have you done a wine tasting before?
Uh-uh.
Your first time?
First time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with this, is going to be a bit different.
Okay.
You are going to taste 5 wines. All 5 of these wines, as you can see, they are named. And they are going to be allocated to 5 different wines. Okay. So what you're going to do is, you're going to have a little smell of the wine. You're going to have a little smell of the chocolate. And then you try and pair flavor profiles you experience on the nose and try and see if it's similar to what you get on the palate. So you know, wine is a very acquired taste. A lot of people tend to enjoy a lot more sweeter wines. All of these are dry. Okay. So every chocolate that I've placed in front of you, that is the wine that you're going to have with the chocolate. Okay. So we're going to start off with the Rosé. With the Rosé, it's a lovely, light, easy drinking Rosé. It is a blend of 6 different grapes, basically 4 red wines and 2 white wines. The red wines is your Cabernet Sauvignon, your Cabernet Franc, your Merlot and your Shiraz. And the white wines is your Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon. Sauvignon Blanc is majority of this blend. Okay, the Rosé itself goes through 2 hours of skin contact. With that 2 hours of skin contact, that's how we get that beautiful pink coral color. Okay, so your notes on the nose, you might pick up a bit of your strawberries, more cherries, nice candy floss notes as well. It is an overall enjoyable Rosé. So you can pick up the glass. You can have a little twirl of it. If you can't twirl it like that, you can keep it flat on the table. Right? And you can just hold the bottom like that. And you can just spin it around. So what you're going to do is, you're going to spin the wine. Okay? With that, it helps with aeration, giving you a better concept of how the wine could smell. You smell it, try and pick up on flavor profiles that you might get, and then you take it from there. You have your first sip, you enjoy it, and then we move on to the next one. Okay. Okay. So next up, you are going to have the Sauvignon Blanc. The Sauvignon Blanc's origin is France. Okay. So with the Sauvignon Blanc, it is 14% in alcohol. It spends 6 months in a stainless steel tank. Sauvignon Blanc is our signature white wine of this estate. So this 2025 vintage, it's 90% Sauvignon Blanc, 10% Semillon. So why we add that 10% of Semillon is basically to round out the flavor profiles of the Sauvignon Blanc wine itself, and also lessens the acidity of the Sauvignon Blanc grape. With this, more gooseberries, lychees, more kiwi notes. So very beautiful, nice and palatable. And yeah, this wine in 2020, our 2019 vintage actually won best Sauvignon Blanc in the world. In 2023, we came top 5 in that right. So we are quite well known. Not only is this well known at Groot Constantia, it is also very well known in the whole of the Constantia wine area. So yeah. Do you have any questions so far? No questions. Okay. So next up, we're moving on to red wines. Okay. So we're doing Pinotage. So with the Pinotage, it's a bit different. This is the native grape of South Africa. Okay, so it originated in the Stellenbosch area in 1925. So it's been growing on South African soil for about 100 years now. What they basically did was they cross-pollinated 2 different grapes. They took Pinot Noir, they took Hermitage. Together, it makes Pinotage, a hybrid grape. Okay. This is 14% in alcohol. Yeah, that is 14% in alcohol. So 2023 vintage. This goes through French oak barrels. So with the French oak barrels, it spends about 12 months. So yeah, with this also more of your strawberries, more cherry notes. And yeah, overall, it's a very good Yeah. You like that?
Yeah, it's very nice.
Lovely stuff. So yeah,
Light. It's light.
it is light.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's easy drinking. It's a beautiful rosé that you just taste there now. But yeah, look, regarding this Pinotage, we are the only farm in this whole Constantia area that produces Pinotage. You'll get it only out in Stellenbosch and Franschhoek, obviously the place of origin for that kind of wine. The reason we cannot really produce that much, or we're the only farm, is due to the fact of this farm sitting on the peninsula. So we are basically in between two different oceans. You got the Hout Bay area on that side, over the mountain, over Table Mountain, and you got False Bay out in the distance. So that cross breeze is normally very good regarding white wines. But on this farm, we produce 70% red wine and only 30% white wine. Okay. And then that brings us to our next one, the Shiraz.
Shiraz. Again. Red again.
And red again, there we go. So with the Shiraz, more of your primary spice notes. White pepper, black pepper, coriander. So quite spice driven. It's finished off in a French oak barrel for 14 months. It is also 14% in alcohol. Okay. So with that Shiraz, it is our most produced. Yeah, eh?
This one is the best.
Yeah.
Pinotage.
So you enjoy that Pinotage, eh? Yeah.
Nice.
Look, it's a lot different to what you get anywhere else in South Africa. So yeah. You can have a sip of the Shiraz as well. That's a very good one, yeah.
Yeah.
It's there, eh?
Yeah, it's nice.
There we go. So,
Yeah,
for the,
feeling is strong.
yeah.
Yo, then again.
Do you want me to have a seat for this one? I'll have a seat explaining this one, eh? There we go. So, with this last one over here, this is the Governor's Reserve Red. So, it's named after the first man that established this place in 1685, Simon van der Stel. With Simon van der Stel, he was the first ever governor of the Cape Colony. So, in that time, when he was the first ever governor, the best grapes were always reserved for him. So what we try to do, we try to allocate the best of harvest for this wine. So with this, it's a blend of 4 different grapes. It's the Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, and Petit Verdot. Cabernet Sauvignon carries majority of this blend. This is more of your full-bodied red wine. With this wine also, it has the potential of you keeping it for probably the next 20 to maybe 30 years. So moving back to the governor, Simon van der Stel. With Simon van der Stel, when he acquired this land, it was about 763 hectares in property. Well, at the moment, this land is no longer, well, that big. Groot Constantia itself is about 173 hectares. And 90 hectares, you will get vines. The rest of it is obviously these tasting rooms, these restaurants and things like that. But yeah, every grape that we produce, or everything that you are tasting in front of you, is produced on this estate. Okay. We have the production cellar on the inside. We have our, our bottling and everything area on the inside in this building as well. But yeah. Do you have any questions?
All the wine, the red is from South Africa.
Everything is from South Africa. So,
Because this one was
look, countries, that's the country of origin.
Okay.
Everything is grown here.
Yeah, okay.
Country of origin, meaning obviously where it originates from. But it's grown. Everything is grown on this farm.
Okay.
So yeah. Do you have any questions?
No, it's fine.
There we go.
I just like it.
You just like it?
I like it.
Did you have a sip of this one yet?
Yes. Yeah. I want to test now.
Yeah. So, look, with those chocolates that's in front of you, you have Rosé and Sauvignon Blanc, Pinotage, Shiraz, and Governor's Reserve
Okay.
So with the rosé is cinnamon pear biscotti white chocolate, as well as the Sauvignon Blanc. They have the same chocolate. Then you'd have Pinotage, Shiraz, and Governor's Reserve. The Pinotage is, well, blackberry milk chocolate, so it's the only milk chocolate that we have available for tasting. The Shiraz is a dark chocolate. It is cherry dark chocolate, cherry cinnamon dark chocolate.
Okay.
And then the Governor's Reserve is also dark chocolate, and it is an espresso dark chocolate, so basically a coffee chocolate. Okay. So yeah. Thank you very much, guys.
Okay, thank you, man.
There we go. I'll give you your time to enjoy your wines,
Thank you so much.
and then we'll take it from there. If you have any questions, you know where I am. Okay.
It's fine, I like it.
You like it? Thank you.
Taking you through our pre-production cellar tour. So we're going to be walking up a total of 6 flights of stairs, but I always like to break it up into 2 parts. So we're going to walk up the first 2 flights. We're going to start off in the Maturation cellar, where I will give you guys a little history on the farm, how we make and produce our wine as well. After that, we're going to walk up another 4 flights. At the top, that's where you get to see the production cellar. Okay? More than welcome to take photos and videos as well. Other than that, you can just follow me. Go. Die. Can you all hear me clearly? Perfect. First and foremost, welcome to Groot Constantia. We are the oldest wine producing farm in South Africa, as well as one of the oldest wine producing farms in the Southern Hemisphere. The farm itself was founded in 1685 by Simon van der Stel, who was a commander at the time. He became the commander in 1679 and was in charge of about 760 hectares of land, of which he decided to send a few of his soldiers out that would gather different types of soil samples, and in return, that's where he decided to plant the very first vines. Okay? History has indicated for it to be your Steen, also known as Chenin Blanc, and then different types of Muscadel, which would have produced your sweeter wine. Okay? The farm was then established in 1685. 4 years after that, he was then promoted to the governor of the Cape. He was the governor for about 10 years. But he managed to keep the farm from 1685 up until 1712. That's the year that he passed. And he had a will that 2 years after his passing, the land had to be split into 3 separate parts, and each part had to be privately auctioned off so that no one person could own the entirety of the land. That's when it became the Greater Constantia, which is where we are today. Another farm was then founded that we call Buiten Bewachting, and then a residential area now known as Berkeley. Okay? The very first person that purchased the farm after Simon van der Stel, his name was Captain Oliver Burr. He was born in Sweden, served as a soldier under the VOC, rose to captain and purchased the farm after Simon van der Stel. He had the farm for about 8 years. When he then passed, his wife, Anna de Koning, she inherited the farm and she became the very first lady owner of the estate. And she kept the farm for a further 10 years as well. Okay? After Anna de Koning, there were other farm owners, but they never did anything of significance. It was only towards the start of the 1770s where the name of Greater Constantia rose to fame. Okay? The Cloete family, they were known for doing very good business in Cape Town at the time, and they were looking for the next big venture. So in the 1770s, they then purchased the Groot Constantia farm, introduced new technology at the time, and improved the quality of the wine. And with that, our wine was then mainly exported to France, Spain, Belgium, and Italy, and would only often be consumed by royalty and the nobility at the time. Okay? The Cloete family, they kept the farm for 4 generations. It would have been a span between 110 to 115 years. So from the 1770s up until the 1880s. Unfortunately, towards the end of the 4th generation, there was a vine disease that would attack the roots of the vine, and they were forced to liquidate. The farm then became a wine experimental farm where they would purchase different vines from throughout the world, trying to find vines that's more resilient, and that's why we use your American rootstock to this day. Okay? Fast forwarding a bit to 1925, that's when the land was then declared a national heritage site. So we're always trying to preserve the land for future generations. And then the last change in ownership happened in 1993. That's when it became the Groot Constantia Trust not-for-profit company. So it's the trust that runs the farm, but the land itself is still declared a heritage site to this day. Okay, so where we find ourselves, this is our red wine maturation cellar, where we store our wine in French oak barrels only. We will purchase between 200 to 300 brand new oak barrels every year from France, and on average it will be about 1,000 euros each. Okay, we use the same oak barrel for 4 to 5 times only. So if you think of the oak barrel like a tea bag, the more you use the same tea bag, the flavor that you get becomes less throughout each use. Okay, so that's why we use it for 4 to 5 times only. We then use it for our dessert wine after that. Okay, so our wine, it will be stored here anywhere between 10 and 15 months. Once it's fully matured, it then goes upstairs to the production cellar, where everything will be blended and stabilized. It will then go down to the bottling and labeling that we do on site, and then sometimes sit for up to 6 months in the bottle before being sold for purchase or put on the wine tasting options. Okay, so this is only half of the oak barrels that you see. The other half would be through the wall over there. So at any given moment, we'll have about 1,000 oak barrels on the estate. Okay, the smallest one will be about 225 liters, going up to 500. And then the biggest ones that we use will be the 3 big ones that you see over at the back there. They're 2,700 liters each, and we strictly reserve that for our Shiraz wine. So the bigger the surface of the oak barrel, the less oak flavor goes inside. It just brings out the natural characteristic of the grape. Okay. Lastly, these oak barrels that you see at the back of me, they form part of the museum / Manor House. It's just the older oak barrels that we used back in the day, and they are French oak as well. Okay, all good? Perfect. So we're going to walk down the aisle, we're going to walk up 4 flights of stairs, and then just turn to your right hand side and I'll explain everything that you see there. Okay. Okay, so everything that has to do with the harvesting and the fermentation of the wine will happen on this half, when all the blending and settling will happen on the other half. Okay, our harvest season, it will be from January up until March for our red and white wine, and then for our dessert wine, late April towards the end of May. By the time that we harvest our dessert wine grape, it looks almost like a raisin on the vine. Majority of the water is lost, but then inside you have your natural sweet juice. Okay? At Groot Constantia, each bunch of grapes is still hand harvested, and on average we harvest about 500 tons every year, which will equate to about 450,000 bottles. Okay? So
What season usually the harvest happens?
from January till March,
Okay, that's the harvest.
and then late April towards the end of May as well. Okay? So once it's harvested, it then goes through a destemmer, where it removes the stems and the stalks so that we get the grapes by itself. It's then sent through a cooling system, which are all the pipes that you see overhead, and then that will be connected directly to the pneumatic press. And inside there, that's where the grapes are then crushed. So inside there's like a metal balloon with the grapes on the outside. The balloon will then expand, and that's what presses the grapes up against a wire mesh so that we get the juice separately and the skins and the seeds separately as well. The skins and the seeds that we don't want to use, we'll then take it out and then put it back onto the vine as a fertilizer. But then the juice and the skins and the seeds that we do want to use will then be placed directly into the fermentation tanks. Okay? Inside there, you have the natural sugars of the grapes. We don't add any sugar, we don't add any fruits, we don't add any sort of spices. natural sugars of the grapes, mixing with different strands of alcohol yeast. We can use as much up to 8 different types of yeast in one single fermentation. Okay? So it's the yeast that will then eat at the sugar, giving you the alcohol percentage, carbon dioxide, and the primary flavors of the wine. Okay? The fermentation period could vary anywhere between 1 to 8 weeks long, just depending on the amount of tannins that we want to extract from the skins. Once that's done, I then get placed into our oak barrels to mature further. Okay? What's also interesting to note is the location of the Groot Constantia farm. We are quite close to the False Bay coast, which will be Muizenberg, giving us the southeasterly wind, and we're also quite close to Camps Bay and Sea Point, which will bring us the northwesterly wind. So that's what helps cools down our vine and classifies us as a cool climate. Okay? To put that into a perspective, an hour's drive from here to Stellenbosch, which is another wine growing region, our climate on average is 5 to 8 degrees Celsius cooler. And that helps us grow a very good Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, and also helps change the flavor profile of our red wines. Okay? We have a very steep incline. Some of our grapes is growing between 60 and 80 meters above sea level, all the way to the back of Table Mountain, which will be 260 to 280 meters. 5 different types of soil, mainly your clay, granite, and then the Table Mountain sandstone as well. Okay? So those will be all the factors that will help influence the taste of our wine. We are 70% red wine, focusing on Shiraz, 30% white, focusing on our Sauvignon Blanc, and you'll see that also on the tasting sheet as well. Okay. All good? Okay. We're gonna make one last journey, just down the aisle. At the end, you'll see there's a board with a list of names. I'll read a few out and also give you a story behind it. Go. So you can still all hear me clearly, right? Yes. Okay. So in the beginning, I mentioned that our wine was mainly exported to France, Spain, Belgium, and Italy during the 1770s up until the 1880s. I like to call this the golden era of our wine, not because of the quality, but because of the people that consumed it. Okay? So this would have been the list of clients at the time. Okay? It was even quoted in literature at the time. We have Charles Dickens, as well as Jane Austen in Sense and Sensibility, where she used our sweet wine as a cure for a broken heart. We also have a poem by Charles Baudelaire, where he made the comparison that the only thing sweeter than the Constantia wine was the lips of a lover. Okay? But I'd say the most famous story, or the story that people tend to know before even coming to the farm, revolves around Napoleon. He was exiled to St. Helena Island in 1850, and he had somebody order wine on his behalf. This was his secretary at the time. He would order between 30 to 40 bottles of the Grand Constance a month, ship it to St. Helena Island, in order for Napoleon to enjoy roughly 1 bottle per day. This was from 1815 up until 1821, which is the year that Napoleon passed, and that's also coincidentally the oldest bottle of the dessert wine that we have. Okay? There was a private auction about 4 years ago, not here, but in Europe, where they sold 1821 for 960,000 rand, for just over $50,000. Okay? But even before that, in 2009, what the Groot Constantia farm did, they took 12 bottles of the Grand Constance. They're going to keep it for 100 years and only open it up in 2109, just to show you it's a wine that you can age over time and potentially through a few generations as well. Okay. Are we all good? Okay. So for those that didn't start the wine tasting, quite simple. We're going to walk all the way downstairs. At the front desk, just show them your sticker. They will give you a glass. You can have a seat inside, outside, or at the old Cloete Cellar as well. For those that have started, we'll just continue where you left off. Go. Thank you.
Welcome to Groot Constantia. Now over here on the estate, we do everything from start to finish for all our products. Around me at the moment, you see all our vineyards. These are the closest vineyards that you see all the way around over there, as well as all the way up the slopes of the mountain as well. We have some helipads on this side over here, as well as the historical baths all the way up there. The historical baths are actually a sight to behold. It's a place where some of the previous owners, the first owners, would build like a little swimming pool, but they would call it a bath. It's big enough, but it's made in this old style. It's actually quite amazing. But like I said, further down you have the helipads as well that we use. We have multiple helipads, but we use the closest one over here. It's easier for the guests to walk down. Should the guests join one of the restaurants, especially Simon's, they would send a vehicle up that pathway over there to collect their guests walking over the grass, collect them, take them down to the restaurant on that side. Of course, with the production cellar over here on the right, that is where the magic happens in the production of the grapes, as I'm sure that you've seen on the tour that you've went on. But this is where the production and the manufacturing and the labeling, the bottling happens, but the labeling happens on that side of the farm, separate from this, and the storage of all the bottles as well. So everything that we need, like the bottles, gets brought to the farm, but then we process everything from the beginning to the end on the farm. Okay, we're gonna make our way down now towards the Manor House and the Cloete Cellar to give a little bit of history of the farm as well. Okay. And so what you're seeing over here in front of you is the other side of the property, of course, where the rest of our vines are being planted all the way down and around up the mountain slopes as well. In the distance over there, that's Falls Bay you'll see, and we'll, as I've mentioned before, if you stand over there at the Manor House, everything is built on the X and the Y axis. This is to ensure maximum visibility of the property as well as everything around the property. When you're standing over there, and I will show you in the Cloete Cellar as well in the main office, when you're standing over there, you can see the vines, you can see who's coming through the main gates, you can see which ships are coming in the harbour based on the flags, in order for you to prepare your produce and go trade with the ships. But yeah, the Manor House, at one stage the entire house actually burned down completely, and the only thing was left, I'll show you inside, is the floor, and the main entrance was left standing. The house was rebuilt and everything inside was sponsored by a private collector to give us a good idea of how people lived at that stage of their lives. Now inside of the Manor House you have a self-guided tour that people can do. There's information points, but it's a museum, so it's very quiet inside, so allow people to read and understand and see exactly what and how people used to live like. All right, so we can go through. All right, so over here you've seen the Manor House. At the bottom of the Manor House, on either side of the steps, you have these storage areas where food and wine used to be stored. Remember that time of the years, there was no electricity, no way to keep food cold, no refrigerator. So they would have different methods of having rooms that is almost underground, but retained by the earth's coolness to preserve food for a little bit longer. That you will find over there in the little alcoves underneath the stairs. Storage of wine as well that would happen over there. And facing this way we have the ponds, or the duck ponds. They are also part of the aesthetics. They belong to the estate. Kids love them. And of course we have the Cloete Cellar over there. That is also part of the Eco Museum, of which on the left hand side we have part of the museum, and the right hand side we do our wine tastings as well. That cellar was erected in 1791. It was finished building, and the wine our Groot Constantia, the wine that Napoleon used to drink, also came from this particular cellar. We can take a walk. So, with the cellar over here, one of the first things that the Cloete family did when they started here at Groot Constantia was build a proper cellar to store wine and to preserve the wine that they've produced. This set the tone for the quality and standard of which Constantia's wine was made. And that quality was recognized all over the world. From dukes and queens, all of them consumed Groot Constantia wine because of the quality coming from South Africa. Remember, this farm is the oldest wine producing farm in South Africa, established in 1685. Now, that is a big feat because this was also one of the first land allocated by the government for growth of the farming industry within South Africa. Now, the cellar holds some big secrets as well. There's no secret that, of course, it was built by enslaved people. It was the farm workers at that stage was also enslaved people. But that was the dynamic of South Africa, and that is the history of South Africa. That is the history that we acknowledge, and that's the history that we've built this country on. However, all of those families have either gone out of the farming industry or they have generations working on the farm but in much better conditions. But in the cellar over here, you'll see as we go in, on the left hand side you will have your part of the museum, wagons, copper pots, but on the right hand side we do our wine tasting as well. So you can come inside. In conclusion, Groot Constantia is a very big part of South Africa's history. It is our duty to preserve and protect it, to ensure that our children and the future generations can also share in the history and the cornerstones of South Africa's wine industry. The Manor House, along with the Jonkershuis area over here, along with the wine cells, along with the production cellar, along with Simon's, as long as with Cloete Cellar, all of those fall under the Groot Constantia Trust. All the proceeds of the trust goes towards the preservation of this land, of this estate. Our future generations need to understand where they come from, what has been to where it is now. And with that, I wish all of you a welcome experience here at Groot Constantia and an authentic South African wine industry experience. Thank you.